Hi, my name is Inez Murray and I'm on the advisory panel and I'm the chair of the board of directors for Crisis Café.
Hi, my name's James. I'm also on the advisory panel for the Crisis Café.
Hi, I'm Olivia and I'm co-chair of Crisis Café.
Hi, I'm Harry. I'm a member of the Crisis Cafe Advisory Group and also a member of the Newry Down Youth Council.
And I'm Siobhan O'Neill, I'm the mental health champion for Northern Ireland. So I'm interested in what we need to be doing in Northern Ireland to support young people's mental health. Have any of you any ideas around that?
I think if there's more mechanisms in place that allowed young people to have their voices heard, like if there's really more structures there like Crisis Café where young people could be on an advisory panel and be able to say what they think about mental health and how they can improve it. Because here at Crisis Café we've been able to have been listened to, and that's where some of the best ideas come from, and it's some of the craziest that we never think will work that have the best impact on young people, because young people know what young people need, and if we put them in the positions to make that change, that's where we'll see better well-being in Northern Ireland across the board.
So giving young people a voice and connecting with young people is absolutely crucial, and young people want to be involved in creating change and creating a better society. Yeah. Do you have some other ideas around that,
I think if we educated teachers on mental illness and mental health, I think that's very important. I don't know if they take any courses in mental well-being or anything to do with that kind of stuff, but I think they need to know it's very important. Like it's very, very important because a lot of students will be missing school because of their mental health, and it will just look like they're like lazy or like they're just lacking off and stuff, and it's just really misunderstood. And I know I've suffered with that a lot, and then you're trying to come up with excuses as to why you're off, and you're like mental health, and then it just doesn't seem sufficient.
So one of the things that we're doing at the minute is implementing a framework for mental health in schools, and it's about improving that environment and helping teachers understand what the mental health needs of pupils are, so that they can respond appropriately, I suppose, to situations where a young person has a mental health problem. I mean, a lot of us are from a generation where we didn't even really talk about our feelings and we didn't talk about this stuff. So teachers just sometimes don't know how to do it or what to do. I think we need to give them those skills as well. So
definitely.
the school is a really important environment. But you know, from what I'm hearing, an environment that could harm or support your mental health or well-being. Is there any good examples of things that schools are doing? Examples of where schools are getting it right?
Well, in my opinion, the school has grown closer with the education authority in a way, like, telling us about are there any youth groups in the area, clubs, ups, and also we have a good relationship with our parents, and we're social around them, the teachers, get along with the parents. It's kind of how it all works, and maybe once the young person starts taking up a new hobby, or finally getting some support from some group or club or connection school has, as that can help them improve a lot. I know it worked a lot for me from one time when a teacher referred me to an EA group for a summer scheme, and that pretty much where it all started for me in my work in the Education Authority, and I've been a part of the Education Authority now for 2 years, and I don't regret any of it.
No, that's great, and that's an example of where the EA is reaching out and trying to get the voice of young people there. And you made another really important point about, schools are not in isolation, they're part of a whole community, and they're only one part of the picture, but it's all of the other things that's happening in the community, and it's about helping young people to have hobbies and to have friends and connections outside of school, and all of that stuff will support your mental health and well-being as well, I think,
And if there are structures put in place that schools could connect with places like Crisis Café, because I know I'm out of school now, but when I was, there was teachers that would constantly say, like, how can we help Crisis Café? But instead of them having to do that in their own time with money the school doesn't really have, to put it in place that there's opportunities for schools to work with local charities that can affect mental health in the community, because that's where it all starts. The kids go into school, but when they come out of it, what's there for them? It needs to be a full, holistic picture.
And sometimes it's easy, and actually it doesn't cost that much, just to make those connections and to make sure that the schools know what is in the community and what young people can do and what options there are for young people. outside of school, I suppose. But I guess one of the difficulties is that the schools sometimes are a bit blinkered about their role. You know, they can see it sometimes as we've got to get these young people out with a certain set of qualifications, you know, and we need to shift how we think about this as a society. You know, the role of schools, it's not just about educational outcomes. In fact, if your young people are having mental health problems, then, you know, in many ways we have failed with the rates of high rates of mental health problems in Northern Ireland young people. I see that as a failure, and all of us need to take responsibility for that in some ways.
I was sort of wondering how we can promote men's mental health, and especially in schools and at that critical age of sort of between 11 and 18, where everything that you experience kind of has an impact on you, will have an impact on you in later life and as an adult.
Well, no, that's a really good question, and we know that the majority of suicides, for example, happen within men. So that is a problem. I think the gender stereotypes that we were talking about earlier are actually really harmful. This idea that women talk about their feelings but men shouldn't, because that's seen as a weakness, you know, to express your vulnerability. So there's a social kind of society-wide conversation that we need to have there about expressing feelings, about the acceptability of expressing your feelings, whether you're male or female, or regardless of how you identify. That's really important. I think we need to be going into those single-sex schools that exist in Northern Ireland, and there are so many of them. So we need to be more focused there, and we need to talk about male mental health. I think, you know, mental health problems look differently in men from what they do in women. The men express themselves differently, so we need to start to recognise that. We need more males working in mental health services so that men feel more comfortable in those services. I think our services are very feminised. We have a lot of female staff. We know what depression looks like for a woman, but actually, you know, the behaviours can be different for all sorts of reasons. In males, so we need to know about that, and we need to make sure that the settings where we deliver mental health services are settings that men would naturally come to, and sometimes that looks like, you know, in different locations. So in the farmers markets, you know, that's one place where we encourage sort of mental health check-ins and things like that. So sports, just being in places where men are and having a conversation with men, for men, that you know, men feel comfortable with, and getting rid of all those harmful stereotypes about what it is to be male and what it is to be female. You know, they don't serve us in any aspect of life, and they're particularly harmful here.
I feel like you said there, it's really strong in Ireland, Northern Ireland.
Definitely.
It's probably the strongest in Europe, I would say, because there's a real like sort of view of brush it under the carpet, it'll be gone in the morning, you know.
That's Irish.
That's just Irish. That's just Irish. Like.
But this idea that men need to be strong, you know, and we shame, like those shame triggers. You hear people talk about shame triggers. For women, it's about their appearance. For men, it's about their strength. You know, and we need to just catch that every time we see it. We need to catch it and eliminate it. You know, and hopefully there's a generation of men now growing up who are more able to talk about their mental health. I think there's been a few role models that have talked publicly about their struggles recently, you know, where you have musicians and footballers and, you know, so things are starting to shift. So more of that sort of stuff is really good as well.
There needs to be male role models though for men to actually listen, because if they hear like another woman, they're gonna feel like it's more focused on women and like
it's that mirroring stuff, you know. If we can't see it, we can't be it, and it's difficult to know how to do it if you don't have examples of other people that are doing it. But men in our own lives doesn't have to be famous people, you know. Just more men we have that talk and ask, you know, how are you doing, and listen for the answer and respond appropriately. You know, we can do this better, but it needs to start from a really early stage, I think, as well, in schools and preschools and across all sections of society.
If schools focus more on like who you are as a person when you come out at the end of the door, and it's not teachers' faults and it's not schools' faults, it's just the way the education system here is structured. It's focused on grades and outcomes and numbers, when at the end of the day you're not just a grade and you're not just a number, and that doesn't determine where you end up or how well you do in life. It's about being a good person, contributing to society and being a part of your community, and all of that leads into well-being. And if we could have more of a focus on that, more of a focus, instead of just talking about resilience, like resilience is all you hear in school, but it's not what am I being resilient to, or how can I build up resilience. It's just a PowerPoint once a semester on what it is, if we could focus more on that and actually talk about mental health and that it is bad sometimes, but that it can get better. That's how we'll really make the generation of the future.
And all of the programs that focus on hope, they're about goal setting, about actually asking young people, what is it you want out of life? What do you want to do? What fires you? You know, what gets you excited? What do you want to achieve? And then working towards those goals rather than having these kind of really narrow view of exams and academic achievement as being the be all and end all. You know, because it's really not. And when you get into adulthood, you realise that. Yeah. But as a young person, you can be quite blinkered into this way of thinking that this is all that matters, that exams and things, you know, and that's really bad for your mental health. Like, that's because we are all different and we have different strengths.
I feel like as well, young people have a lot of stress about the future, especially now with COVID and that. Like, no one knows what's going to happen. No one knows how the pandemic's going to pan out and how it's going to affect us later down the line in terms of career choices and what sectors are going to be viable and which aren't, you know. And I feel like it is a changing environment, and like it's understandable from schools' point of view that they can't really do much because they know as much as we do, which is practically nothing. But in a lot of scenarios, you know, you can there can be a lot more done, I feel, in schools to sort of give students the opportunities to explore, okay, what potentially could interest me as a career option, or what could I do that I never would have thought of before. Because a lot of the time I think a lot of schools sort of just focus on a few things, and it's mainly because not a lot of people are interested in anything else. But like, there's some things that like when I was growing up, I thought I was going to be an author. I thought I was going to be writing like journalism and that. And now I'm doing music. So like the complete opposite direction, and that was something that was never really explored until last year for me.
So having options, just being and having an opportunity to explore yourself, to think about what you would want to do. We're always going to need musicians, regardless of the pandemic. We're always going to need people to be creative, you know. So that's just so important.
Yeah, and on that actually, with the music and stuff, I know in my school, if you have music lessons during the day, you're not really meant to get out of classes at A level, which makes sense because you don't want to miss your subject. But they're very against like going down for music lessons and taking time out of class to do music, because it's not viewed as important because it's not education. But really that could be like a stress relief, that could be like your favourite thing, that could be your passion, and then you're just forced to study all day. I had to drop singing lessons, which I've been doing since first year, at A level because I wasn't allowed out of class to do them.
Is that not a subject in your school though? Was that not considered like?
No, they're just classes.
So that's seriously, it's not
yeah,
that's really
well, music is a subject.
Yeah.
But if you wanted to learn like guitar or like singing, musical theatre, anything, obviously you have to pay for it because someone else comes in to teach it.
There's so many barriers to that creative expression that actually we know is so good for you. You can get
amazing, and it's hard too because I wanted to do dance in uni, but my English teachers and my other teachers at GCSE, they kind of guided me towards doing English because I was good at English, and my parents want me to do English too, and it's just hard because nobody really sees a future for like more creative people. It's always just, this is more academic, you need to do this will get you a job better, like easier if you have an English degree than a dance degree.
So you feel you're automatically at a disadvantage because your strengths are somewhere that's it's not valued. I mean, this is a society thing, isn't it? It's about what we value and what we will pay money for and what people are, because I was sort of torn between art and psychology when I was your age, and I love painting and I haven't done it in so long, but and I need to do more of it because it's so good for me. But I ended up picking. No, I get that. I ended up picking the more kind of academic, acceptable, you know, and that's such a shame. Like.
Yeah, I know, it's terrible.
Yeah.
I'm torn between psychology and dance for uni now. I'm not sure what to do.
Yeah. And do you have help with that? Do you have somebody that's neutral that can come in? No, because they would kind of send you down the academic path.
No, we haven't really talked about it yet. No.
Yeah, on that topic, I would like to add that throughout years of my life, I've heard people say a there's such a thing as like a failing teacher or failing pupil. But given this conversation we're having today, I don't think there might be either one of those things, like such a thing as a failing teacher or a failing pupil. It might just be a failing system. I mean, people always tell us, or some people do say this, like diversity is good, but is the system itself diverse? Or no diversity? Or are we just taught to think it is, even though it isn't?
And how do we change the system? Well, that's a real question, because if the system's wrong, then who's in charge and how do we get in there? Well, I think voting is really important. I always come back to this idea. We vote, and it's those leaders in society and the political parties we vote for are so important. So getting politically active is absolutely crucial part of this as well, if you want to change the systems and the structures that are kind of responsible for all these things.
And sorry,
No, go ahead.
awareness for political voting. Yeah, that too.
Do you think young people, like of your age group, do they vote? Are they politically active in that way?
I think after everything that's happened the past 2 years, I think in the past 5 years even, I think people our age, they can't afford to really sit around and not vote anymore. And all of my friends are registered to vote, and after everything that's happened, with exams, with COVID, they saw who took care of them, but they saw who didn't, and they're going to hold them responsible for that. They're going to vote for the people who care about them, and it doesn't not necessarily matter which party it is, but it's who really cares about you as a person and who you can trust with your vote. And I think people our age will really value that, because I haven't voted before. I don't think anyone in my cohort has. Like, it's been a long time since the last election, and people really see this as an opportunity for a change and an opportunity to hold those leaders to account.
So you're the mental health champion for Northern Ireland, and I was just wondering what that means and what that involves and how you got there.
So, well, it means I have lots of conversations like this where I listen to people and hear about the issues for people on the ground and what factors affect their mental health and then their experience of services. So that's a really important part of my job. I talk to young people's groups, but also talk to professional bodies. I talk to different activist groups, even people who are campaigning for different types of services, people who represent different populations across Northern Ireland. So those conversations are really, really vital. My training is as a researcher, so I did psychology, and I'm a professor of psychology at Ulster University, a professor of mental health sciences, and I've been there for over 20 years researching mental health in Northern Ireland, looking at suicide in Northern Ireland specifically. And then one of my goals is to use that evidence to actually change our services, to make them better, so that we have services that meet the needs of the population. So that training is so important, because I come at this from a scientific perspective. I'm looking for the evidence, I'm looking for what works, what does the research tell us works. So as well as hearing from individuals, I'm also always trying to keep on top of the research. And I'm also on all of the groups that are taking forward mental health reform. So we have boards and steering groups that are responsible for the delivery of the mental health strategy, the framework for schools. I would sit in all of those groups and look at what they're doing and what's included and who they're listening to and how they're doing it and how it's been evaluated. So, thinking about what programs are we putting into schools, what does the evidence tell us we should be doing? So I would advise there, and I would try and work with government, and then if they're doing something that I feel is really, really inappropriate, I'll go onto Twitter and I'll say it. And that kind of is quite scary as
Like
well,
the rest
maybe.
of us.
Like the rest of us. But and it tends then sometimes the newspapers will pick up on things that I'm tweeting about and stuff as well, so that happens too. So it's about mostly working with government to try and create change, and having that scientific perspective and always using the evidence. But I need to keep listening to people as well, because I come from a particular background myself, and I have a particular view of the world, so it's really important that I keep having these conversations and connecting with people on the ground too.
Yeah, because I haven't heard of any other mental health champions across the UK. So how did you get elected, or how did that come around?
So you would, in some places they have like mental health ministers, where they have a person in the government that's responsible for mental health. Probably wouldn't work so well here, because we've all different political parties. It's better to have somebody who's neutral. So I've been talking about mental health and what needs to change for a long time. Even before I was doing this, like I was on social media talking about it, going up to government. But you know, the universities are being judged more and more on how they create impact from their research. So that was a good thing, and my university really supported me in doing that, and trying to influence policy. So that's just something I've been passionate about. And then it came about in a mental health plan that was put out in early 2019. And there was this idea of a mental health champion. I was asked to do it on a temporary basis because they were developing the strategy so I could contribute to the strategy. So I said yes, but then they were making it permanent, so I had to apply. So I put in an application and was interviewed and went through that whole process. And I was successful, so I was really pleased. And so now I'm doing it for a period of 3 years and maybe extending it for 6 years, and then somebody else will get a chance. So it's like a public appointment. You have to go through a particular process, and people assess you and look at your qualifications and skills and how you conduct yourself to see if you're suitable for this. But it's brilliant to have a chance to work with government, to try and make change, and it's, you know, it just fills me with hope that I can do this. You know, I'm trying all the time to make sure that I do a good job and that they're really trying and do my best here.
Yeah, it's really important.
Yeah. So thank you.
Okay, well, my question is, tell me, do you think that young people today know that the youth groups available to them today can help get their voices out there and heard and make a difference?
That's a really good question. I think there is not enough awareness of what's available for young people and the mechanisms that are there, you know, so we're still struggling to connect with young people. And we're struggling to work out what the best ways of connecting, because it's different. I mean, some young people will come forward, but often, you know, the young people we're trying to reach actually don't even have the confidence. They don't believe this is for them. You know, their self-esteem and self-worth is quite low sometimes, you know, the ones who really struggle with their mental health as well. So they don't see themselves as, you know, as having a voice, as being able to, you know, have something important to say. So it's important, you know, for me as mental health champion to make sure that we are reaching a diverse range of young people. So cities, rural areas, different schools, different types of schools, that we are really diverse, that we are reaching the young people who wouldn't traditionally come forward, you know. So that's something we need to do. But you're right, there is a lack of awareness, and sometimes there's too many things, and young people are going, well, I don't know what to choose, I don't know what's right for me. So maybe schools could play a role in helping with that as well.
So in my own experience, whenever it came up to my 18th birthday, I remember being asked when it was, and at first I thought it was quite friendly. I was like, well, that's nice they're asking, but within a few weeks it was slowly but surely being cut off. And what more can be done about the transition from child services to adult services?
Well, I think there is a recognition now that 18 is a really bad time to be transferring somebody from one group of services to another service. You know, because there's often that transition to college or university, and we realise, you know, that it's actually more like mid-20s whenever things are a bit more settled for young people and they're finding themselves. And so there's a group of people who've been working on this, and we're about to make that change, and we're looking at different models right now. So it could be some sort of a phased thing, recognising that it's not just about transferring from one to another. It should be more like a kind of a three-way conversation to make sure that young person doesn't feel like this is the edge of a cliff for them, because it's really not working, and we totally recognise that. So we're doing a bit there, and hopefully things will change in the next couple of years.
It's really great to hear that, because it is such a huge time of transition, but it's nice to know that things are being done and that there's a strategy in place to make changes there.
Yeah, but it needs to happen faster.
Exactly.
That's the problem, because there's young people going through that right now, you know, and this is not going to help them, and that's a problem, that's a challenge, you know.
Yeah, that happened to me in June. I was in hospital because my mental health got really, really bad. And I had 3 CAMHS appointments between June and August, and I turned 18 in August. So they were referring me on to adult services. And then I got an appointment in September, but then I had COVID. So then I was pushed back like another 8 weeks. So I never got any real help from June till last week.
Right, and that's a really critical time for
Yeah,
you
it
as
was
well.
very bad, yeah.
You know, and if you look at the research evidence, it is about the relationships there. It's about knowing who you're going to see and being comfortable in that setting and that continuity of the services. So you know, you'll have shared stuff with a therapist here. You know, so you don't want to be repeating your story again and again. That makes things worse. It makes you feel really bad. You know. So yeah, we need to do much better in terms of these transitions.
Yeah, it feels like I've talked to like 4 therapists about stuff and I have to keep repeating something that's really hard for me to talk about, and then it's just left open and nothing's done about it, and I know that's the case for so many people, not just me, so it's definitely needs to change, and I'm glad that it is going to change.
Yeah, good stuff. Thank you.